Build your brand and grow your business is the presentation that we're going to be going through today. So hopefully there will be some useful material for you. So the first thing is a little bit of background on myself. Basically, my background has been coming up to 30 years, well, 28 years. So a little bit off 30 years I've been working in business. Obviously, I'm from New Zealand, but I've had half of my working career in New Zealand and a lot of SMEs, everything from retirement villages through to landscaping businesses and construction and so forth. But I also have had a massively big career over here in advertising agencies with the likes of Ogilvy One and Ogilvy Action, Wunderman, Dentsu, and a whole lot of people like that. So my background is very strong in the marketing, branding, and sales perspective. But I've also worked for the two-man band businesses doing their marketing, everything from agencies through to working with cars, businesses like Auto, who are auto sharing, and I'll show you some of our clients as well. But also, this is my third business. I had one in New Zealand, which was a small consultancy, and then I had Kiwi Girl that went on to Kiwi Grey, which I sold last year. So a lot of those understandings of the smaller business I get and I understand, but I'm bringing all my big agency marketing experience to bear. So then, sorry, obviously we're having some technical difficulties this morning. So a little bit about F.T.S.Q. So don't conform to the norm as our communications team is a thing that we're really pushing this year, and it's something that we think is really important to a lot of business owners. And I think there's a huge amount of power in your difference when you stand out as different. I know differentiation is one of the issues that we've had thrown at us quite a lot by our clients, and we're inspired by a whole lot of people that do things differently and are okay with being different, and actually their difference is the thing that makes them stand out. So we're going to be talking about that when we talk about storytelling further on. Just some of our clients so you understand who we've been working with. Yes, we do still work with a number of advertising and marketing agencies doing their marketing and their positioning, but we also work with the likes of Transitions UK, which is a charity for young people. We've got a fashion brand, men's luxury fashion brand that we're working with. And we even, very interestingly, have a brand called Wicked Wastes that we work with. And they are fetish wear and BDSM clothing and those kinds of things, and even steampunk. So quite interesting, quite a diverse list of people that we work with. So we're not afraid to work with people that do things a little bit differently. The reason we're here today, so your brand is not your logo. We get a lot of people thinking that brand is logo, and we're going to show you that brand is way more than the logo that you put on everything. It's what people think and feel and when they come across your business. And we're going to explain to you how you can go about making sure that you're building a brand and not just promoting a logo. We also think marketing is much more about emotion as it is about function and logic, and it's very much about making sure that you capture hearts as well as minds. And there's actually some stats we're going to show you about that today. And the last one, which is something I'm really passionate about, supporting the Davids to take on the Goliaths and win. I absolutely love working with small to medium-sized businesses and giving them a whole lot of tools and help to be able to take on the big boys and win. I think it's one of the most fun things to do. It makes me really happy and excited when I help businesses do that. And yeah, it's a cool thing to do. So that's why I want to keep talking to you guys today. So setting the scene. One of the things that we've done some research on what's going on out there at the moment, and there's some top line things that have been a bit concerning to us. So we were unaware that per hour on average in the UK, there are 70 businesses being created in that hour every single day of every single week. Now that's huge. What's more scary was the fact that 57% collapsed within 5 years. And we thought, one of the things we wanted to do about helping support the non-conformist business owners out there and people that want to do things a little bit differently is how do we help those people that don't kind of fit in the normal mold of what people would call normal and help them not be one of those businesses that collapse. And one of the skill sets that we have is around branding and sales and new business and marketing. You know, there's Brexit coming, funding is tough out there. We know that there's a lot of people trying to grow out of their revenue rather than having, you know, the big Facebook investment being done and, you know, what have you. And one of the things that we looked into is why are they failing? And a couple of reasons that we found that we can help with is that businesses as brands are failing to differentiate themselves. They're struggling with brand awareness, so they often build a website and have that they will come attitude. And often saying the same old things as everybody else. There's a really good example of that. I did a example one night where I went onto Twitter and I just had a look at a whole lot of same sector businesses, and they were all kind of saying the same thing. There wasn't anything really differentiating, and I've seen that time and time again happen in lots of different businesses and sectors. And I think a really good example of a business that's been able to do that and help them stand out and differentiate is a business called Pull, which we're going to do a case study on a little bit later. But they very much found a bit of white space where they could talk about where brand and tech meet. They're a marketing agency that originally did some brand and design and then did some digital work and weren't quite sure how to put that all together. And very much having that clear differentiation for them has really helped them step up. Also for ourselves, you know, business consultants are a dime a dozen. So we had to think how we're going to step out. One, it's about being authentic. And for us, supporting non-conformists is something we really care about. So that's a space that we're owning. But there's other things, you know, they have a lack of planning, short-term and reactionary. And as one long-time US merchant, some of you guys might have heard of this before, said, half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. The good thing is in today's day and age, there are ways you can figure that out. And I think that's really important. And I think businesses are failing to behave like brands, which is really important, but we'll unpack that as we go. So what a brand shouldn't do. So what a brand shouldn't do is there's a whole lot of things that they tend to lack, that businesses are failing to market themselves, they're failing to build brand reputations, and sometimes the sales is out of whack with marketing, and often marketing is ad hoc and unplanned. So some of the things that they lack doing are things like having an authentic brand story. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. Propositions are purely focused on what they do and how they do it. And it must mainly be about why in relation to what and how. Very much why you exist should be at the forefront of how to differentiate yourself. Brand guidelines. Now, this may sound like something that some of your smaller businesses don't have at all. And it can be really simple. And there's a simple way. If you work with us, we provide templates on how you can do your brand positioning and have brand guidelines. Sometimes you'll get what are called brand guidelines with the logo that's developed occasionally for you. But what brand guidelines also should include is how you talk about yourselves and the tonality in which your whole business should be communicating. And that's really important. It's pretty much never that we find that people have got these, but they are vitally important. Audience research, insight, and understanding. There's so many businesses out there that are not understanding who they're actually communicating with and are making massive assumptions. So we're going to dig into that. Inconsistent messaging is another thing. We find that people are often not quite sure what they need to say and how they need to say it. And as a result of that, they come across quite schizophrenic. So we'll be talking about that and helping sort that out. Marketing and sales strategy. Some people may do lots of bits here and there, and it's often quite tactical. But what ends up happening is rather than collecting it all together, they end up doing a bit of everything and not quite figuring out what's working or what's not. So there's a way that we'll show you how to do that. Investment in time, in people, and budget is often lacking. And sometimes if you do have sales people, often they're hiring the wrong types of salespeople. So that's really important. And when I talk about budget, it doesn't have to be huge amounts, but you know, there are still a lot you can do with small amounts of budget, even with no budget, to be fair, with all the likes of what's going on social media and lots of different things. You can do good marketing without having to spend lots and lots of money. They're also often scattergun approaching to prospecting and pipeline development. So they're trying to build their opportunities up, but it's kind of a scattergun approach. So we need to avoid that. Another reason for the strategy. And often small businesses find the word sales icky, particularly if they're in a brand business to business environment. Business to consumers, not so bad. But sales is a really important thing, because marketing is all very well, but it just drives leads. It doesn't convert. And we need to think about how we convert to make money at the end of the day. And inconsistent communications, like I said, that inconsistent messaging, again, a lot of the time, and we get this, we're a small business ourselves, about you know, being consistent, but we've got a way of being able to do that, which we'll talk a little bit more about around content calendars and how to make sure you do that. So it's time to be braver. It's time to challenge our status quo and stop doing the same old things. So what do you need to do? So the interesting thing is that I think 2019 is going to be about emotional marketing to beat the algorithms that are happening on social media and so forth, because to spark an emotion in people is about sparking a reaction. Sparking a reaction enables you to beat the algorithms at its own game. And what's helpful around that is always a huge amount of neuroscience and psychology around the buyer psychology. And I don't know if any of you are aware of this, but 95% of purchase decisions actually take place subconsciously before somebody is going through the logical side. And what's really interesting is when you look at a lot of sales materials and a lot of marketing, it's all about what somebody does or how you use something, whether it be selling a service or a product. It's all about the what and the how, not enough about the why. And yet why is very important. Purpose is very important. We're going to talk about more of that later. You need to engage more emotionally than logically, yet for some reason, as I said, we're focusing on the logic. Know who you're talking to. It's not just about demographics and, you know, how much money somebody spends or whether they are of male or female or age group or what have you, but it's about mindset. And a really good example of that is our own brand. F.T.S.Q. categorically doesn't want to work with dickheads. We just can't be bothered with that. And so we've had to think about, from the mindset of people, what's going to be helpful for the types of people we do want to attract, those really good, down-to-earth, decent people that we want to work with. So that's one way of thinking about mindset. There is power in true purpose. The definition of the Oxford Dictionary is that purpose is the reason for which something is done or created, for which something exists. So for me, when we talk about your brand positioning, your purpose and reason for existing is going to be a huge part of that. Know who you are and what you stand for. I think it's really important as part of your differentiation to know what you care about, what you stand for. And if you look at all those strong brands and businesses out there that are doing well, it's usually those ones that have a really clear view, and they attract people, the types of people they want to be doing business with and working with, and the types of clients and customers they want to be serving. And in that way, we have to build trust. That's why we did a whole piece on brand reputation. It's why we have become a strategic partner to Trustpilot, because we get that the reviews and the things that come back and the trust that you can build as a brand is really, really important. And that's grabbing that heart, not that mind. And the third piece is around the buyer psychology and that purchase decisions is, once you understand your audience and you understand all those things, you then are able to market on the channels your audience is already playing in. So it helps you narrow down. Rather than trying to market on every single channel that exists, it helps you narrow it down by understanding where they already are. So these are the things a brand should do. Audience profiling. So this is something that's really, really important. We often come across businesses that are just guessing at who they need to talk to. So one of the ways that we discuss audiences is every business has 4 audiences. You have existing clients or customers, which is here. You want to communicate with them because you never know what else they might be buying or wanting to buy. Then we've got prospective new customers, we've got team, we've got advocates and recommenders, and they are all people that you need to be communicating with. As explained here, retention, organic growth, PR and awards are things that you can do with clients, new business and growth. Recruitment and brand advocates and referrals and word of mouth are all ways that you can be communicating with those new audiences. But if you don't know and haven't gone into detail beyond and looking at existing research papers, you can look at existing, creating surveys of your existing customers. You can do desk research on what's going on in those industries and just really get to know what it is that's going to tick the box for them. And it's something that big brands do really, really well and small businesses forget to do. Brand storytelling. So what is it that you need to pull together? So brand storytelling is very much about having the right visuals and the right tonality and the way that you communicate and the right positioning. And you do that by starting with purpose. Now, you've probably heard me talking about purpose, start with why. We've talked about how businesses are failing to tell the right story and story that highlights a business's brand purpose. It might sound like fluff, but there's actually strong evidence to suggest that brands and businesses that have a purpose are more likely to be successful. So, for example, Ernst & Young with the Harvard Business Review did a report on the business case for purpose, which we can send to you after this, by the way. It was based on a survey of global business executives. 85% of those interviewed said that they were more likely to recommend a company with strong purpose to others. 81% said that purpose-driven companies deliver better products and services, and 80% of organisations with a shared purpose will have greater customer loyalty. So this isn't just fluff. There is a pure business case study to back this up. You have to have a vision and you have to have a mission. And we often come across people that have got confusion over what the difference for this is. In order to build a brand and to build brand reputation, you need to understand your vision, which is very much about the mental picture of what we want to achieve over time. And it almost needs to be unachievable, in my view. It's about something that you're always seeking to achieve, something that is future-proofed for a whole business to get behind. It's basically the legacy that your business wants to leave behind. So the legacy I want to leave behind as F.T.S.Q is I want to have created a safe environment for non-conformist business owners, a place where they no longer feel judged and where they can just be themselves. That's a big thing, but it means I never have a failing idea of where I'm trying to take everything in my business. But then the mission is about how lays out what we must do as a business to achieve that vision. So that's where you get into the more technical, what are we going to do about it? So having those two things very clearly, if you put those in front of your people, they will then be able to communicate those to your customers and your clients. So don't just focus on what and how. Don't just hang your hat on a story based on the rational and the things that you do, but instead focus on what you believe in and what gets us out of bed every day. So that's how you sort of build your vision and your mission. Values and behaviors and tone of voice. Everybody has, a lot of businesses have values, but it's the behaviors that bring it to life. It's the way you and your people behave in which people will recognize what kind of business you are. But you also have to have a clear tonality. So anybody going onto our website today, excuse me, or onto anything we've done will have a very clear view of the tone of voice that we have on our website very clearly. It should be showing who you are, how you should behave, and the way that all of your communications are communicated. And that just provides a good brand experience, which is great, and what you're looking to do. Brand essence, very simply is a one paragraph that's usually pithy and concise that captures and communicates the conceptual subtleties of your brand. So it's where the why purpose needs to come out strongly. And it's just you summed up as if you were a human being. Your brand promise is that outside promise. It allows you to connect your why, your positioning, and your people and the desired customer experience that you want to provide. But also you need to make sure you step up and own what it is that you promise. So one of the things that I promise to do with my clients is I always promise to be extremely honest and blunt, and to the point about what I advise them to do. And I think that's really, really important. Elevator pitch. Some of you who are in branding and marketing might know this. Some of that you are not, may not know what an elevator pitch is, but it's basically if you were to get in an elevator with somebody and explain what your business, about your business, what it stands for, what it sells, etc., you need to be able to do that in about 60 seconds, if not less, whatever that elevator ride would be. And it's important that your proposition is communicated clearly and succinctly in the outside world by everyone, whether that's your own people, your clients, or your advocates and your recommenders. So it really shouldn't need any explanation. It should just immediately communicate your reason for being, and then your how and your what. Communications theme. You need one of these to support your consistency. So communication theme is developed to ensure that all external communications are landing one clear message throughout the year, no matter the channel. And this theme will ensure we don't appear schizophrenic to the industry or to our existing clients or potential customers, but you're still staying true to your overarching brand proposition. So that's really helpful. And you can change it yearly. It means something that you can decide maybe once a year or once every couple of years. You decide that you've exhausted that theme and everything going out has kind of got a bit boring, so you want to move on to something else, so it keeps you fresh and relevant without having to change your overarching brand positioning. So once you've got your story, and that's sort of the framework of your story that you've got there, then you need to look at your marketing strategy. So how much does marketing support the new business and the sales effort? The reason we ask that is, in our experience, there's often been a disconnect between marketing, which is about building your brand reputation and getting those leads, and sales, which is developing a pipeline of opportunities or people that you then have to convert into a sale. They both need to support each other. And that's basically what your marketing and sales plan should consist of, is those two sides of things: leads coming in and your ability to convert. The way that the F.T.S.Q strategy works, and we would go through this on the day at our event later on in May, is it's built on two foundations. Your strategy is sort of figuring out where you have to go and what you need to do, and it's built on what we call the marketing ecosystem, which I'm going to show you in a second, and a content calendar to build reputation and to drive opportunities. So what that covers, this looks really complicated, but it's really not. It's just an example of the fact that there's certain things that are good at grabbing people's attention. There are certain things that you want to use to engage, and there are certain things that you want to amplify your story. And it's what's called owned, earned, and paid. So there's certain things like your newsletter, like the work that you do and the news that you're setting out, etc., that is owned by you, as is your website, as is your blog, as is any stories you tell about your clients. There are also things called earned media, and particularly social media and PR is where you have to earn people's attention and engage them. And then there's those things that you pay for. That's your paid advertising, your paid Facebook posts, your paid advertising in your local newspaper, whatever it is that you need to pay for. They kind of sit into these areas. Now, not everybody needs to use all of these. You just use the ones that are appropriate for you, and that's based on where and how your customer base, how they want to be communicated on. I'll make it really clear. Don't try and do everything. Pick the things that are going to have the most benefit and the most relevancy to the audience that you're talking to. And then very simply, using content to drive your ecosystem. So to drive out content across all the different options, you can have the top line here about exist to support non-conforming business owners. That is our positioning and our why, but don't conform to the norm as our communication theme. So that's bringing those two things to light. And you can then create content that's based on the work you do, or it can be thought leadership or opinion pieces, or it can be just news that's going on. And it allows you to look at multiple different buckets of content. So for us, it's about some things. Sometimes we're talking about our business approach, other times we're celebrating the non-conformists. And as a result of that, we keep consistency across all the way that we do our marketing across the ecosystem, which is the thing that we just showed you here. So it means that this approach with your content means that the way that you then use the ecosystem means you can actually create one piece of content and put it across multiple different things. It keeps your resources at a minimum to do your marketing. So then when we're looking at your strategy, you need to make sure that your strategy aligns your objectives with what does your business and the commercial side of your business need to achieve? What does the brand and marketing need to achieve? And what does the sales objective? So what are the financial figures that you need to be hitting to be able to keep your business going and growing? And without these objectives, it kind of means that everything kind of floats along and you have no clarity on what you're trying to achieve. So objectives and business and commercial and brand and marketing and sales all needs to work together. Once you've set those objectives, you need to set about marketing and providing those leads for yourself. So you need to make sure that all the different channels that you use, once you've decided on the ecosystem, which ones you're going to use, that there's what I call matching luggage. What I mean by that is there's a consistent look and feel and way of communicating, no matter whether it's a newsletter or whether it's on a blog or whether it's at an event or it's in any of your other sales and marketing. There needs to be some consistency. Even on social media profiles, we see a lot of the time they've not used the same imagery. You need to make sure that that's there. So things like website, is it clear what you do, why you exist? Is the decision-making journey easy for them to take? Where does it even fit into the buying journey? A lot of people don't think about where does the website fit in the journey that your customers are taking. You need to think about that. And as a result of that, does that change what goes onto your website? Blogs. Lots of people get worried about doing these. There's lots of different ways. You can do it to camera if that's more your preference. You can write them. They don't have to be long. They can be short and punchy. It's just a point of view. It shows your experience. It shows your expertise, and it helps you gain trust. Also helps with your SEO and all those kinds of things. There is direct marketing to be done. You can do email marketing. You can do direct marketing. Weirdly enough, there's a push by the Royal Mail at the moment to do more posting, because apparently there is a higher uplift now with huge inbox floods. People are now starting to go back to enjoying getting the good old snail mail, which is quite interesting. Social media, have you got a strategy? Are the channels that you're using where your audience is? If your audience isn't on Facebook, why are you insisting on being on Facebook, for example? Understand where they already are and then only go after them on those channels, because that's, you know, you're small businesses and it's difficult to spend your time on everything. Events, you can host your own events. You can host your own roundtables, or if you're a consumer-facing brand, then there are farmers markets people can go to. There are lots of different trade shows and things like that that you can attend. PR, you need to understand what your audience is reading and consuming in order to make sure that you're then pitching to the right publications, the right magazines with something that's interesting to say. There's all sorts of things around flyers and posters and credentials. Again, making sure that that messaging is consistent. It's about figuring out what's going to be the best, and that just takes research and it takes time. It will help you with all of that, as well as advertising. The content calendar is a really interesting one. A lot of people we've met have struggled with, I don't know our topic, I don't know the content that we need to do, how often do we need to do it? We would help with all of that, and we have a template to help. It's about scheduling proactive content so that the kinds of things that you can talk about ahead of time. Research what people are going to find interesting, match that with what you want to say, have a rant, celebrate things. We love a rant here at F.T.S.Q, by the way, but we also celebrate. We're just creating a new series called a podcast series with regards to supporting and celebrating non-conformists. So that's going to be coming out soon. And it's very much about us celebrating that. But you need to plan the full year, month by month. Look at what's going on at the time. Look at, is it Christmas? Is it Easter? Are there any local events, i.e. beer festivals, if you're a beer brand, for example? Plan the month, then plan the weeks, and then plan the days. It sounds like a huge amount of work, but once you do the massive job of pulling that together, which we can provide the templates for, then it becomes a lot easier and a lot clearer about what you're doing for your content for the year. And we've done that really brilliantly recently with our charity Transitions UK. It's just made everything much easier and much simpler, and they're able to use schedulers like Hootsuite to enable them to do that. Then it's about sales and converting leads. You need to figure out where your leads are coming from. What are the sources that are working? Do you know which sources of leads are even converting more than others? And then you need to use a very old adage from the sales days from back in the day that I used to sell magazine advertising space. You need to focus your attentions, 80% of your time, on where 20% of those big, large leads coming from, and then focus more and more on that. You need to understand what your targets are. You need to understand how many you need to fill in, the opportunities you need to have to be able to convert. You need to understand your sales conversions. How are you closing? What is the percentage of lead to close? If you don't understand that, you need to start looking at that and understanding it, because then you understand how many leads from marketing you need to be achieving in order to set your goals for yourself from a marketing perspective. You also need to understand how you can grow existing customers. Do you have a communications program that sort of focuses on that? And then it's the recommender program. Who are you partnering with that can recommend work your way? That's a really good way of doing things, and we find that we get most of our work through that. And there's sort of a whole lot of ways that you can look at converting leads. So, for example, if there's going to be an opposition to the sale and you know that's going to come ahead, do you attack that issue in your marketing ahead of time? Are you allowing people to do a bulk buy deal, for example, sort of promotes that? Or are you, if you're selling a service, are you giving them an added value? So, for example, in my last business, we used to sell packages where if they bought 6 months worth of retained time with us, they only paid for 5, and things like that. There's lots of different ways that you can do that. So as a wrap up for today, one of the things we wanted to say is, look, like you, we are one of you. We walk the walk and do what you need to do. So everything that we promote and talk about, and the way that we pull storytelling together and strategies together in marketing, we actually do it in our own business. So we're not just telling people how to do one thing and doing another. So that's one thing. With 28 years in business, building brands and selling stuff, for want of a better word, just in the last 10 years in agencies, there's a huge amount of experience that I bring to the table, and would really love to be able to help lots of people. We've got this event coming up in May. It's going to be looking at audience profiling, and we're going to be providing templates and helping you create those on the day to get your perfect prospect profile. We'll be providing templates on brand storytelling and actually helping you start to create your proposition and messaging according to our methodology. We've got content calendars, and we'll start helping you with starting to create a content calendar using our template and ensuring you land consistent messaging. And marketing, we'll be using our F.T.S.Q marketing plan template to help you get on with creating your own marketing strategies, looking at what's right and what's not. And we'll be really excited because we actually have a PR expert who's one of our strategic partners from KV Communications, Christelle, who will be coming along and also giving her views to help, because PR seems to be one of the things that small businesses have got a bit of confusion about as well. So she'll be putting that on, and we'll be talking about social media and email and a whole lot of other things.